In this video, we reveal 5 of the most shocking oil rig worker fatalities ever. What terrifying events led to these tragedies? How do workers face such risks daily? Join us as we explore the chilling details and unanswered questions behind these real-life stories, showcasing the daily grave dangers oil rig workers endure. On April 20th, 2010, a catastrophe unfolded in the Gulf of Mexico that would have far-reaching and devastating consequences. The Deepwater Horizon oil rig, leased by British Petroleum, BP, from Transocean, exploded, resulting in the deaths of 11 crew members and causing a massive oil spill. Standing 4,992 feet above the seabed, the rig was engaged in a high-stakes operation that ultimately went disastrously wrong. The Gulf of Mexico has been a central oil and gas drilling point since the 1930s, providing over a fifth of US oil and gas production. The oil reserves below the ocean floor were formed from organic materials trapped and transformed over millions of years. These reserves accumulate in underground cracks and pockets known as pay zones. BP, one of the world's largest oil companies, was exploring the Macondo prospect using the Deepwater Horizon rig, operated by Transocean and assisted by Halliburton. The Deepwater Horizon arrived at the Macondo well in January 2010. By early April, the crew was ready to complete the final tasks before regular oil extraction could commence. These tasks included drilling into the bedrock, fitting a metal tube, cementing it, and replacing the rig with a smaller production unit. Problems emerged during the drilling phase when high pressure forced BP to halt drilling 2,000 feet higher than planned. They then faced decisions about casing, the concrete pipe lining the hole. Although riskier and more prone to leaks, a longer casing was chosen over a shorter, safer option. Complications continued with the centralizers, devices ensuring the casing's even placement. Instead of using 21 centralizers as recommended, only 6 were used due to a supply shortage, increasing the risk of uneven cementing. BP engineers made risky choices by cutting pre-cementing tests short, using less cement and pumping it slower than recommended. Despite Halliburton's warnings about the cement's instability, the job proceeded. On April 20th, after midnight, BP and Halliburton representatives believed the cementing job was successful. However, positive and negative pressure tests were misinterpreted during the final detachment process, failing to detect a gas leak. By 8 p.m., the crew mistakenly concluded everything was fine. Around 9:40 p.m., gaseous hydrocarbons shot up the pipe, pushing mud onto the rig's floor. Moments later, the gas ignited, causing a massive explosion visible from miles away. 11 workers were missing, presumed dead. The rig capsized 36 hours later, on April 22nd, Earth Day, coinciding with a global environmental awareness event. As the rig sank, it damaged the healthy pipe, initiating an 87-day oil spill. The Deepwater Horizon spill became the largest marine oil spill in history, releasing approximately 3.19 million barrels of oil. The disaster captivated the nation, with many opposed to offshore drilling. Environmental responders attempted various methods to mitigate the spill's impact, including dispersants, controlled burns, and containment booms. BP made 3 attempts to cap the well before succeeding on September 19, 2010. The environmental damage was severe and long-lasting. Oil slicks covered birds and turtles, leading to their deaths. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, researchers estimated that 14,000 sea turtles and hatchlings died, and various marine species suffered injuries. The oil and marine debris sank to the seafloor, contaminating deepwater fish and sediments. Hydrocarbons, particularly polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, proved toxic to aquatic life. The spill also devastated the Gulf Coast economy. The U.S. Department of the Interior temporarily halted offshore deepwater drilling, causing job and wage losses, particularly in Florida. Seafood safety concerns led to extensive fishery closures, resulting in significant economic losses for the commercial and recreational fishing industries. Tourism also suffered initially, but rebounded by 2011, aided by BP's marketing funds. The disaster triggered numerous lawsuits against BP, Transocean, Halliburton, and Anadarko. In 2011, NOAA and BP agreed on a $1 billion payment for early restoration projects. In 2016, BP settled most lawsuits for $20.8 billion, the most significant environmental damage settlement in U.S. history. Most of the funds were allocated for economic and ecological restoration projects. Despite these measures, oil and gas production in the Gulf of Mexico continues. Safety regulations, such as mandatory negative pressure tests, have improved, but systemic issues remain. The complex operations involving multiple contractors and specialists pose ongoing challenges in ensuring safety. The 11 dead men were remembered as hard-working, dedicated individuals who loved their families and work. They were Jason Anderson, Dale Burkeen, Donald Clark, Stephen Curtis, Gordon Jones, Roy Wyatt Kemp, Carl Kleppinger, Blair Manuel, Dewey Rivette, Shane Rocheteau, and Adam Weiss. A memorial service celebrated their lives with banners, an engraved ship bell, and bronze hard hats symbolizing their loss. It was December 15, 2022, on the Sea Fox Burge gas rig off the coast of Qatar. Robert Robson, a 38-year-old British worker, was murdered by his roommate, Scott Forrest, a 43-year-old man from Aberdeenshire. This tragic event ended Robbie's life and revealed issues with working conditions and legal struggles. Robson, known as Robbie to his loved ones, had recently started working with Film Ocean, an underwater inspection company. He lived with his partner, Christy Graham, and their children. Friends and family described him as a loving partner, devoted dad, son, brother, and uncle. His sudden and violent death left a void in their lives, a loss they describe as unbearable and irreplaceable. Robson's colleague, Chris Begley, was injured in the attack. He went to check on Robbie and was struck on the head. Despite his injuries, Begley managed to escape and seek help. He was later treated in a hospital and returned to Scotland. According to Begley's father, the attack was completely unprovoked, and there had been no previous animosity between the men. The assault on Robbie Robson was severe and brutal. Forrest attacked him with a 10-kilogram or 22-pound iron weight, used in submarine operations. Robson suffered around 20 blows to his body, leading to his death. Authorities found his body wrapped in a bedsheet and concealed in a staff bathroom. The details of the attack paint a picture of a violent and senseless act. Qatari authorities immediately detained Scott Forrest. His family expressed shock and disbelief at the news, stating they had not contacted him since the incident. Forrest had a background in underwater inspections and had worked in various locations, including the North Sea and Thailand, before taking the job in Qatar. Former colleagues were stunned by the news, finding it hard to believe he could be involved in such a crime. In December 2023, Forrest was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 10 years in prison by the Qatari courts. The sentence drew widespread criticism, especially from Robbie's family. They were initially informed that Forrest could face the death penalty if found guilty of murder. The leniency of the 10-year sentence was incomprehensible to them, given the brutality of the crime and its impact on their lives. Robbie's partner, Christy Graham, has vocalized her disappointment and anger toward the sentence. She expressed the family's devastation and relentless fight for justice. The family's appeal against the conviction was rejected in January 2024, but they are now pinning their hopes on a final appeal, with a decision expected in May 2024. Their frustration with the justice system intensifies the family's grief. They believe that the initial charge of murder should be upheld, and that Forrest should face a much harsher punishment. Christy Graham emphasized the disparity between the sentence and the crime, stating that a more severe punishment would reflect the severity of the crime and the loss their family endures. She pointed out that their youngest child would be just 12 years old if Forrest were to serve the complete 10-year sentence. Adding to their pain, the family is also deeply unhappy with Robbie's employer, Film Ocean. They believe that the working conditions and culture on the rig contributed to Robbie's death. During the trial, information emerged that suggested the cramped and stressful living conditions on the rig may have played a role in the incident. As a result, the family has instructed lawyers to pursue a civil case against Film Ocean. Work conditions on offshore platforms in the Middle East have concerned workers. Despite the high wages, the atmosphere is often likened to a pressure cooker. The confined and stressful environment can take a toll on workers' mental health, leading to situations like the one that resulted in Robbie's death. Former colleagues and friends of Scott Forrest described him as someone who had been suffering from stress and anxiety due to these conditions, which might have contributed to his violent outburst. FilmOcean has expressed regret over the incident and stated that it is cooperating with authorities to establish the full circumstances surrounding it. It has also ceased operations on the Seafox Burge platform and is providing support to the families involved. The British Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO, has supported Robbie's family and liaised with the Qatari authorities. An FCDO spokeswoman stated that they are helping the families of a British man who has died and another who has been injured in Qatar, and they are in contact with the local authorities. As the family awaits the case resolution, they continue to honor Robbie's memory and fight for justice. They describe Robbie as a beautiful soul and a one-of-a-kind individual who was tragically taken too soon. Friends and family have paid tribute to him on social media, sharing memories and expressing their sorrow over his untimely death. It was September 4th, 2014, on the Unity installation, an offshore platform about 97 miles from Aberdeen's coast. Sean Anderson, a 43-year-old contractor from Tyne and Ware, was performing routine maintenance. Employed by Cape Industrial Services, Sean was a dedicated scaffolder who had been on the job for almost 2 weeks. His hard work and commitment were well known among his colleagues and family. On that tragic day, Sean was nearing the end of his shift. The weather was poor, with fog and darkness reducing visibility. The team had taken a break around midnight due to the conditions, but Sean, always diligent, sought tasks to fill the remaining hours. He asked the installation manager for work and began a cleanup operation on the lower deck with 3 other workers. While collecting rubbish with his partner, Tony Omar, tragedy struck. At around 4 a.m., Tony heard 3 loud bangs. He turned to see that Sean had fallen through an open grating on the lower deck, plummeting about 72 feet or 22 meters into the sea. Tony immediately raised the alarm, triggering a man-overboard response. The platform's rescue team quickly deployed a fast rescue craft and found Sean face down in the water. He was unresponsive and, despite immediate first aid efforts, showed no signs of life. Sean was very cold and had no pulse. Paramedics arrived by helicopter, but despite their best efforts, Sean was pronounced dead. The cause of death was severe head and chest injuries from the fall. An investigation revealed Sean was not wearing a life jacket, harness, or survival suit at the time. The conditions on the platform that night were dangerously inadequate for safe working. The trial at Aberdeen Sheriff Court revealed significant deficiencies in British Petroleum's, BP, safety protocols. The company failed to implement sufficient measures to ensure workers' safety around open gratings on the lower deck. The prosecution argued that Sean's death was entirely foreseeable and preventable if BP had taken all reasonably practicable precautions. Debbie Carroll, leading health and safety investigations for the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service, stated that BP's safety arrangements were severely lacking. She emphasized that the risks associated with open gratings were well known and should have been addressed long before the incident. The evidence convinced the jury, highlighting BP's negligence in managing safety on the platform. The court heard that Sean had helped construct the rigid barrier to safeguard the open grating. However, poor lighting and fog made it difficult to see the barrier clearly on the night of his death. Tony Omar, Sean's partner, testified about the hazardous conditions. He noted that the grating should have been closed or better marked to prevent such an accident. After an 8-day trial, BP Exploration Operating Company Limited was found guilty of breaching the Health and Safety at Work Act and fined £650,000 for failing to ensure a safe working environment on the Unity installation. The court ruling underscored the seriousness of BP's failings and the tragic consequences of its negligence. In the aftermath, BP acknowledged the court's decision and expressed their deepest condolences to Sean's family. Sean's wife, Jane, and their 4 children, twins Chloe and Kyle, daughter Hallie, and young Ava, were left devastated by his untimely death. Jane described Sean as a man who would do anything for anyone, a genuine person deeply loved by his family and friends. The couple had been married for 17 years and were known for their close-knit relationship. The tragedy of Sean's death was worsened by the knowledge that it could have been avoided. The court's findings revealed BP had only identified and rectified the safety issues after the incident, implementing post-incident procedure changes to prevent similar accidents. This indicated the company could have done more to address the risks beforehand. It was September 11, 2003, on the Brent Bravo oil platform in the North Sea. Keith Moncrief, a 45-year-old mechanical technician, and Sean McHugh, a 22-year-old trainee operations technician, worked on the platform. They were there to inspect a temporary repair on a leaking pipeline in the platform's utility leg. This inspection would sadly turn fatal. Shell's Brent Bravo platform was located 116 miles northeast of Lerwick, Shetland. It was a large structure for extracting and processing oil and gas. The temporary repair they were inspecting had been done a year earlier, using a neoprene patch and Jubilee clips, which were meant to be temporary. Moncrief and McHugh entered the utility leg to start their inspection. Unbeknownst to them, a broken valve had released up to 2.5 tons of hydrocarbon gas. The platform had been restarted despite several valves malfunctioning. As they approached the patch, they were quickly overwhelmed by the toxic gas, and they were without their emergency breathing apparatus, a crucial oversight. Alarms sounded immediately. 60 non-essential staff were evacuated by helicopter as emergency procedures began. A doctor was flown in from another platform, but it was too late for Moncrief and McHugh. They were pronounced dead on the scene. An inquiry revealed multiple failures on Shell's part. Procurator Fiscal Ernest Barber called the deaths entirely avoidable, blaming Shell's improper procedures and flawed operations. The temporary patch should have been replaced with a permanent repair, and the platform should not have restarted without ensuring all valves were functional. The inquiry, led by Sheriff Colin Harris, showed these failures were common. Maintenance issues had plagued the platform, and oil unions had raised concerns weeks before the tragedy. Shell knew about these problems, but failed to address them. After the accident, Shell faced heavy scrutiny. They were fined £900,000, one of the most significant penalties for a North Sea accident. Shell admitted to breaching 3 health and safety regulations, acknowledging the numerous errors leading to Moncrief and McHugh's deaths. The investigation found that proper pipeline repairs could have prevented the accident. A replacement spool could have been fitted, but the temporary patch remained. This oversight and poor risk management in the utility shaft led to the fatal outcome. In response, Shell reviewed all North Sea installations and improved systems, procedures, and training programs. They launched a $1 billion upgrade program to enhance safety. Despite these measures, the incident underscored the need for constant vigilance and improvement in offshore safety. The families of the deceased were devastated. Keith Moncrief's wife Helen and their daughter Jenna expressed their grief and anger at the preventable accident. Sean McHugh's family echoed these sentiments. Losing their loved ones highlighted the dangers of offshore work and the importance of strict safety standards. Jake Malloy of the Offshore Industry Liaison Committee called for a Scottish offence of corporate killing to hold companies accountable for such tragedies. He argued that real pressure on management was needed for meaningful safety changes. The union had previously raised concerns about Shell's maintenance practices, and the accident highlighted the need for better regulatory oversight. On August 4, 2023, in the North Sea, Stephen "Stevie" Wright, a 45-year-old offshore worker from Newcastle, England, was on duty at the China National Offshore Oil Corporation, CNOSC, operated Scott platform. Located approximately 115 miles northeast of Aberdeen, Steve spent much of his professional life on this platform. Known for his dedication and skill as a rope access supervisor for the oilfield services firm Stork, Steve was highly regarded and well-liked by his colleagues. Steve was a family man, leaving behind his partner Rachel and his son Dylan. He was known for his love and commitment to his family, always speaking warmly of them to his colleagues. On this day, Steve's routine workday took a tragic turn. Around 12:35 p.m., emergency services received a distress call from the Scott platform. Steve had suddenly fallen ill. His colleagues immediately rushed to his aid, trying to revive him. Despite their best efforts, Steve was pronounced dead at the scene. The news of his sudden death shocked the crew on the platform and the broader offshore community. Authorities, including Police Scotland, were notified. They launched an investigation to determine the cause of Steve's death. At this point, the exact cause remained undetermined, with ongoing inquiries to establish the full circumstances surrounding the incident. Steve's passing triggered an outpouring of grief and tributes from friends, family and colleagues. Thomas Grundy, a close friend and fellow rope access worker, was among the first to express his sorrow. He set up a GoFundMe page to support Steve's bereaved family. The page quickly garnered support, raising over £6,700 from more than 120 contributors. Thomas's heartfelt message on the fundraiser page captured the collective sentiment that Steve was highly thought of and liked by everyone who had the pleasure of knowing and working with him during his years both onshore and offshore. Steve will be greatly missed by all who knew him. Stork, the company where Steve worked, released a statement expressing deep sadness. The statement confirmed the passing of an offshore employee on Friday, August 4, 2023, and mentioned that the individual's family had been informed and supported through this difficult time. The news has understandably left co-workers shocked and saddened, and the company is working to provide them with the support they need. Canoak, the operator of the Scott platform, also expressed its condolences. They stated that the news deeply saddened them, and their thoughts were with the individual's family, friends and colleagues during this difficult time. The health and safety executive acknowledged the incident and confirmed their involvement in the investigation. They confirmed awareness that an individual had sadly died offshore and mentioned they are in contact with Police Scotland regarding the circumstances. Steve's sudden death left a void in the lives of those who knew him. His partner Rachel and son Dylan faced an unimaginable loss. Friends and colleagues who had spent years working alongside Steve were left struggling with the shock and sadness of his unexpected passing. The numerous tributes pouring in were evidence of Steve's commitment to his work and closeness with his colleagues. His role as a rope access supervisor was demanding, requiring skill and precision. Steve had always risen to the challenge, earning the respect and admiration of those around him. His dedication to his family matched his commitment to his job. He often spoke about Rachel and Dylan, sharing stories of their lives. His love for them was apparent to all who knew him. In the days following Steve's death, the investigation continued. Police Scotland worked alongside the health and safety executive to piece together the events leading up to his sudden illness. The cause of his death remained undetermined, leaving many questions unanswered. The investigation aimed to provide clarity and closure for Steve's family and colleagues.